Good evening and welcome to Legacy After the Locker Room. I'm your host, Kayla Bradham, here tonight with not one, but two very special guests, NFL alumni Reggie Walker and David Carter. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So, guys, you both played for the Cardinals. It was great seeing you last weekend in St. Louis. Reggie, you've been on the show before. Tell us a little bit about, usually I say bring us back to when you were a boy and what did sports look like in your family, but you guys tell us about your experience playing together in the NFL.
Oh man, it was cool. Reggie was actually the first person I met coming into the NFL. We were like friends, like instantly. It was cool. So it was just and we've been friends ever since then. And it really helps when you have somebody like that when going through the league because uh, the league people go and they come and go all the time. And I was blessed to have for my first couple of years at the Cardinals to have somebody like Reggie as a friend, and that was great. And it's a journey, it's an adventure. So yeah, right.
Yeah, it was great. It's great playing, something that you love with your friends and people that you care about, and to have that camaraderie and to go through so many trials and tribulations together and actually have someone to lean on. That was amazing. It was an amazing experience, and I'm really grateful and thankful for that. We had a lot of great times together on the field and off the field.
Yeah.
I love it. And, that's not where I want this focus to be. I want to talk about all the great things that you guys have done off the field. But just for anybody watching the live stream right now, or people who are driving to work tomorrow and catching it, do me a favor. Will each of you please share with the listeners the NFL teams that you played for?
So I'll go first. So I started with the Cardinals. I was drafted into the Cardinals 6th round. I played nose tackle there and all the other defensive line positions, and then played with the Cowboys and then the Bears. And then Rich.
Yeah, so I went undrafted. Yeah, I did not get that call, but I ended up making the Cardinals roster. And then I played there for a couple of years, and then I played with the Chargers, and then I played with the Broncos.
And Reggie, do I remember correctly? Were you an NFL captain, team captain?
Yeah, I was a captain my 3rd year in Arizona.
I love it. I don't know if you guys can hear or not, but I have a rescued German Shepherd barking at some poor elderly person walking down the street in front of my house. So there's that. Happy rescue German Shepherd year. So guys, one of the things that I love is this whole idea of playing together and being a team. And it's something that we talk about all the time. Teamwork makes the dream work, yada, yada, yada. We bring it over to the workplace. I don't know how much we really practice it in real life because there's still a ton of animosity. What happened after retirement? Reggie, I know you ended up writing a book and you guys have a big project. What did it look like?
As far as teamwork goes, well, I think it was a process of understanding the importance of teamwork and really leaning back on what you knew and what made you successful in the first place. And then breaking some of the mindset that you had playing professionally. So when you play professionally, you're kind of in a situation where it's you. It's just about you. It's like how I explain to certain people is, you play a video game and then you get to the next level and then there's like that bonus level. And it's basically in that bonus level, you're just getting as much as you can get before time runs up. That's the NFL. And when you're in a mindset thinking so solely about yourself and making sure that you accomplish your goals and what you need to do, when you're done, you have to kind of go back to what you learned before previously that, hey, this is, yes, a team, but when it comes down to things, you are very strong in areas, but you also are very weak in areas. And you need to find people that are strong in areas in which you're weak, and you need to actually maximize on your strengths as well as shore up your own weaknesses. But when it comes down to things, you need to also understand your lane and being good in your lane and finding people that are good in their lanes and coming together to get a job done. And that takes a lot of effort, especially, when you're just in that mindset that you are as a professional athlete for so long. So that kind of is how a lot of that transition went.
David, your thoughts?
The transitioning from sports to business to real world. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of that. And, understanding your lane and like what Reggie was saying and understanding who you are, right? I was talking to my sister the other day and we were just like, and we were talking about this very subject. And I was just like, the hardest thing for me was understanding who am I outside of football, right? What are my strengths and weaknesses? And then what are the strengths that I can transition to this real life situation, because football is not like real life athletic sport. It is when it comes to teamwork, in some aspects of teamwork, but in the speed in which everything is going, a lot of things are like your bullets are flying. You mess up and your coach is coming down on you, and then you're watching it on film in front of everybody on the entire team or defense or whatever. It's different, and that's why they have something called post-competitive stress disorder, which is like PTSD, but instead it's for athletes, and they're dealing with all of that, and it's like to come down. And so you have to understand who you are in this new environment, and you're transitioning from like the athletic career, the athletic field, into this real life, and then how you interact with those people in the real life that you're dealing with now, because they don't interact like football players and athletes, and they're yelling quick calls or cross it, trying to hurry up and do this thing right now because you're on a clock. Things are different. And so understanding who you are in that space and how you move in that space, and having confidence in your abilities that you're going to have to hone and sharpen because you haven't used them in this space before. So like that's like one of the hardest pieces in transitioning over from sports to real life, in my opinion.
So, guys, if I can just share my two very humble thoughts about that. Number one, the NFL slogan in every end zone last year was "We run as one." It doesn't sound like that, right? And and number 2, I'm at the NIL Influencer Summit 2 weeks ago in Atlanta with all of the biggest influencers in college sports, all of the sports, football, basketball, volleyball, you name it. Guys, what I hear over and over talking to these kids, and these are just young kids, right? Over and over, Kayla, what I wish my coach knew is that it kills me when I miss a play and they don't talk to me the next day, when I'm dead to them if I'm not perfect. Reggie, David, I can't tell you guys how many times I heard that 2 weeks ago from the biggest influencers in our country, the mental health struggles that they're dealing with perfection coming from their coaches. What are your thoughts on that?
I would.
Well, you can go.
All right, for sure. Me and Reg talk about this a lot when it comes to this, and it's just like a lot of, and I was telling somebody this the other day, a lot of the kids coming from high school to college, right? And then now even, you're looking at the NIL stuff, the game is changing at the high school level as well. A lot of kids are growing up in these sports and they're looking at their coaches as like father figures, right? And the reality is, it's like, yeah, the coaches do that and the coaches need to change, right? But also the players need to be equipped with the mindset and the space and understand that it's like, yeah, they may not talk to you, but they're not your father. They don't give them that influence in that space. You need to understand your coach is your coach, and their job is to coach you up. Their job isn't to coddle you and all that. And it sounds rough, but the reality is, and like I said, me and Rich talk about this all the time. The higher you get up in the athletic game, these coaches, this is their job. If they're not winning games, they don't have a space on the team. They're going to get fired. If the players aren't producing, then they're not doing their job. They're going to get fired. So you have to understand that, and then you also have to understand if it's like that for them, it's like that for you. You're in a business. and you have to operate as such. And a lot of these kids are going in with the mindset, like I said, these coaches are their father figures, like believing in Santa Claus, going into the next level. And that's not fair for the kids, right? That's setting them up for failure. You're not giving them the real of what's going on. So,
yeah.
you go ahead, bro.
Yeah, that what David was saying is very true as far as one of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of athletes come into college sports thinking is this is a lot like high school, and this is the first time they're actually getting introduced to the business of sports. And the thing that I feel and what David understands and what we both understand is it doesn't need to be projected to these kids that way. They need to understand that this is a business. Yes, you're going to school, but you're also a part of a business. And for this business to work, we need to win. If everything is based upon that precedent, if no one's winning, I don't have a job and you're probably not going to be here either. Everything is screwed up if we don't win.
I
And
got
then
kids.
yeah, like that's one of the biggest things that I had to understand when I was going through things is, looking at my coach on one hand, like, oh, this is a father figure, this is somebody that I can, lean on and whatever. But this guy has a bunch of kids. He's also in film doing countless hours of film work to make sure that I'm prepared so I can be the best that I can be, and also he can coach me up the best way that he can. Then, he's also going to these alumni and booster events. They're doing all these events around campus, so on and so forth. Like these people are their time is extremely limited. Most of the time, coaches are falling asleep in their office at night. They're giving very limited time to their own families because they have a goal of either being, a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, a head coach, going to the NFL. They have dreams and aspirations because that's what the business of it is. And yes, just like a business, you could have a boss who could be like a father or mother figure or be a friend or something like that. But some jobs, that's not what it's going to be. At the end of the day, you're going to come here and do your job, and then I'm going to make sure that I do my job. So the whole works out. And that's what it is. And that's the message that these athletes have to understand about the situation. That's not preached enough to them in the first place, because if it was, they wouldn't be going into it with so many misconceptions about what it is and putting so much on the coaches or the university as far as like they're screwing me over, or looking back sometimes as like putting all the fault on themselves. Like I should have known about a situation in which who's going to tell me about this when most of the people around me have never gone through it personally. So I'm literally figuring this out based off sole trial and error, and it doesn't have to be that way. It's actually a much healthier way of going about it. And that's one of the things that, we really are about and really trying to teach, especially with the course that, we wrote. You're on mute.
I want to talk about the course that you wrote, guys. Before I do, let's remind our listeners that the NFL is a $17 billion business. That's 17B as in big boy, $billion business, right? And I want to talk about what you gentlemen believe is the solution. Before we do, I want to take just a moment and thank Sports Philanthropy Network for powering the Legacy After the Locker Room podcast. Sports Philanthropy Network is working hard to build stronger, healthier, and more inclusive communities through sports. That's what this is all about. Guys, what is the solution to the problem? What are you guys doing to fix everything that we're talking about right now?
So, building stronger and more inclusive environments for athletes. That's what we're doing. But that's what Game Within the Game. That's what it is. It's a tool. It's a playbook for athletes to be, empower themselves, right? Understand themselves and understand the environment in which they're entering themselves into, so they can, they can be prepared. It's pre-care instead of post-care. and being all banged up afterwards and be all stressed out and depressed and all that because you went through a bunch of stuff and you didn't understand what to look for. Or you didn't have a framework to keep you so you can color within the lines and be okay. And, I know with Game Within the Game, I wish that I had all of this information coming up, and, it, and, Reg and I talk about this all the time. We even told you about this last time we talked. Is like, there's a lot of guys who we played with who end up on suicide watch lists, or who Reg talks about a story. When the player flipped his car on campus, like there's all kind of stuff like that, and because the players are, there's a lot of things going on, but having an understanding and having a framework and being able to and having the right perspective going forward to stay focused really helps when there's so many bullets flying. You got the peer pressure of your friends, you got the pressure of school, you got the pressure of family, and then understanding what your goal is. And in the book, we call it the pearl, right? Understanding what your why is, and being able to strive and move forward through that and stay focused through that. It really helps a lot, and it really helps for a lot of the nonsense to just kind of fall away. It makes it easy to prune the negative things out of your life and grow towards what your vision of yourself is. So
Yeah.
David, I love that, because I think one of the things we have to add in, and Reggie, I'm excited to hear your response to this. Not only do we have all of the issues that you guys had playing, right? And the way that's affected both of you, plus your teammates, the guys coming before you, the gridiron greats, right? But also now we have the transfer portal. We have NIL, right? So every kid basically needs a lawyer, a financial planner, an accountant, their mom, their dad, everybody involved looking out for their best interest. And there's a lot of sharks.
Yeah.
It's really hard to even know who to trust. And then we also have this, whole situation where still, I'm going to say it over and over again. The NFL keeps telling me that they're focused on health and safety and DEI. Well, I'm not going to close my mouth until we understand that representation matters as well. So until we have more African American lawyers, until we have more African American agents, I'm just not going to stop. Because I can't tell who to trust within the system. How can a 20-year-old kid?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And to go back to the first question that you imposed, that's where I feel the course and what we do really fits in, because going into that situation, and I think I spoke previously about with my transition, it was because it wasn't just the fact that I was transitioning out of sport that I loved and had been so heavily involved in for years. It was also the fact that one of the things that led me to my retirement was the fact that I was dealing with the effects of mental, physical, and sexual abuse. And I really got to the point where I realized that I can't do this. Football's not enough. I have to go figure myself out and get this out so I can actually be a husband, a father, a friend, a brother, a son, because I wasn't doing the things that really mattered the most to me. And that's where I feel this course comes into play, because at the end of it, even going through treatment and doing a bunch of therapy and talking to a bunch of people, the thing that you really understand at the end of the day is the importance of perspective. And when you're 17, 18 years old and you're going into this environment, your perspective is very limited because you've been living with your parents, or you've been living in one place all your life, or say you're a military brat like I was. You've seen multiple environments, but most kids, they don't have that. They don't have that luxury. And the perspective going into it is so vitally important. It could literally prevent so many issues from happening in the first place. Like that's what we go back and talk about, like we were talking about earlier, is understanding your coach is really like your first boss. Because some kids have bosses when they might have a summer job in high school, or job or whatever, a part-time job, and they have a little exposure to that. But really in that environment is your first chance of really being under a boss and how it is working with a boss in a business. And then when you go professionally, it's really a business. It's not necessarily about winning or losing. It's very business oriented, getting people in the stands, making money. That's just what it is. But I'm also not saying that that's necessarily negative all the way. It's just like anything else. It's both good and bad. For instance, like for me and David, when it came to like going to college, for instance, I would have gone to college either way. I was smart enough to go. I was great at school. School wasn't a problem with me. I would have gone. I would have figured out a way, and I would have got a degree one way or another. I didn't need to go the athletic route. But there's also people who were, I've had friends that were like, "Man, I'm so grateful that I played because I would have never had a college education if it wasn't for that." And now I'm doing this job and I'm helping a bunch of people, so thank God that I actually had this education. There's that side too. And then as far as even with professional, there's a lot of stories of guys who went off and did a lot of bad things, but there's also guys who used that situation and maximized on it and went forward, and it propelled them in an exponential way going forward. It's both. It is both. Whether I have my feelings or anyone else has their feelings about it, it is both. It's just the fact that there's the environment in itself. There's so many things that are very toxic about it that it shouldn't be there in the first place because there's so much money in that environment. Yeah, that's an issue. But you also have to also consider the fact that there's so many great things about the environment that really do help a lot of kids
Yes.
and help a lot of people going forward. And it's literally both. And with the course, that's what the course does. That's the way we feel is our gift and our the way in which we would like to help things going forward is helping them, gifting them with this perspective going forward to get the good things out of this environment and not the bad. Maximize on what they are and what they're good at and understanding themselves moving forward in the midst of all this so they can avoid all the bad.
Yes. Man, that's so important, guys. And the next question I'm going to ask you, and David, if you'll get that book ready to hold up, I'm going to ask you about if that book is just for kids who are going to go pro, or if it's for anybody. The game within the game. Everybody knows the NFL is not for long. I'm going to ask you guys in just a moment if this game is just for football or if we can transfer those skills to Major League Soccer, Major League Baseball, hockey, things like that. Before we do, I just need to take a moment and thank our sponsor, Dugout Mugs. Use code Kayla30 at checkout to save 30% off Dugout Mugs. Game within the game. David, you look awesome. I actually just took a little screenshot of that video right there. Looks like a commercial. Guys, everybody says the NFL stands for not for long. We know that sports is a game. You're going to make a lot of money in a very short amount of time. Make it wisely, spend it wisely. Can people take the information in this book and transfer it to other sports? If I have a kid who's a volleyball player, does this still apply?
Yes, 100%. That's it. The book, that version is specifically written for student athletes solely. But if you look through the information, just even if you weren't a student athlete, it would help you understand an athlete's mindset and how to use that in everything that you're going to do. Because at the base of it, it really talks about a couple basic things: knowing yourself, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, building a plan off of knowing yourself and your strengths and weaknesses, how to understand the environment that you're going into, the system that's in place in the environment you're going into, and building a plan going forward with your life yourself, and not having to necessarily have someone tell you what to do. Understand how to tell yourself what you want to do and go towards your goals unapologetically and ferociously. And that's something that we wanted to really teach people, especially when it comes to that athlete mindset. When you really know, like for instance, as a linebacker, if that A gap opens and I see that zone coming towards me, I got to hit it, and I got to hit it fast, ferociously. And I can't think. I just got to go, and I know that this is the right thing to do, and I have to solely focus on that and getting there as quickly as possible. And this book essentially teaches everybody how to use that type of mindset and to hit that A gap in their life as quickly as possible, as ferociously as possible, as unapologetically as possible, as confident as possible, in order to get from point A to their point Z, essentially.
It sounds to me, guys, like even if somebody isn't an athlete, they should be picking up this book and using it for their jobs, for
Yep.
their partnerships, for the people that they care about, right? Like the vision I have, Reggie, when you talk about that is I think of a rhinoceros. Like you put your sights on it and you charge.
Mhm.
Would be to God we could get more people to do that instead of this apathetic, I don't know, it doesn't really apply to me, so I just don't have an opinion. Like
Well,
find your goal and go.
yeah, and go and understand
Exactly.
too at the end of the day that you know there's going to be holes in the ground, there's going to be trees, there's going to be things that are going to affect your path, but you have to go charge to where you want to go. At the end of the day, you have to make that decision, and you got to jump all in. And you need a base to operate from, and that's what the course does, is what the book does. It provides that base to continuously charge full on into what you're doing and not have to think about it while you're doing it. Because one of the big things that we talk about too is you're always trying to put yourself in the best chance of winning, but at the same time you could look at the most film possible, you could study the everything possible, you can do everything possible to succeed, but you can also go into the game and it's 4th and 1 and you're on the 1 yard line, and say you're on defense, and you know the play's coming straight at you. It's just you and that guy in the hole, and then your cleat gets cut and you get caught in the turf, and then you trip over yourself and the guy goes in and touchdown scores. you know it's that's life. You can prepare the best, but you can also fail trying your best, but you still have to pick yourself up and continue to keep moving forward regardless in the midst of all that. And
I
And
I
that's
love that. I think that's the key, Reggie. And I just want, at this point, I'm guessing people are watching the live stream. They want the book. When it drops to the podcast, people are going to be listening to this and they're going to say, "I want that book," or "I want my kid to have that book," or "I want my godchild to have that book." So I'm going to ask you guys how people can get their hands on the book, and I'm going to remind our listeners. Go ahead and find David Carter, Reggie Walker on LinkedIn and Instagram. Both of you use your regular names, right?
yeah,
Pretty awesome.
I am David H. Carter on Instagram at I am David H. Carter. And Reg, what's yours? Reggie Walker.
R Walk 56.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if people want the book, guys, where can they get the book?
Amazon. Amazon.com.
The book
Love
is
it.
available on Amazon.com, but the course, the Game Within the Game course, is available on Forbes Business School, at ForbesBusinessSchool.com, as well as Knowledge and Innovation Center. It is a college accredited course, so you can take the course through Forbes Business School and get college credit for the course. The course is designed for high school. We made it for junior, senior, freshman, sophomore, because we want to get this knowledge into high school students, you know, before they go into college. Because by the time you get to college, your junior sophomore year, and you're trying to make it to the pros, it's too late. So this curriculum and this content is for the parents. It's not just for the students, the student athletes. It's for the parents, so they can have a better understanding of what their child is going through and how to help them navigate the space, but also for the student athlete as well, coming out of high school, going into college, and then they get college credit for it, dual credit, high school and college credit for it. So, like again, it's available at Forbes Business School as well as the Knowledge and Innovation Center. So,
Wait. So the course is available through the Knowledge and Innovation Center and Forbes Business School.
business,
And then
yeah,
it's also
thanks, Ray.
available through Synergy Learning Institute.
Yeah,
So there's two different links. The one through Forbes is a college accredited version, so you can take that and get college accreditation. And then the other one, you could just get a certificate for it. But yeah, there's two different ways you can take it.
So, guys, I love that. And I want to give you enough time for your closing comments, but I really want to say, holy smokes, you can tell two smart men wrote this book with some vision and some forethought, making sure kids were getting credit. Folks, again, that's The Game Within the Game. You can Google, search, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Reggie Walker and David Carter. Guys, I want to give you a chance to just throw out your closing comments, your words of advice. Thank the people in your life you need to thank. But before I do, I ask every guest on Legacy After the Locker Room to partner with me for my charity of choice, which is Special Olympics. Can we count on you guys for an autograph donation?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Parting words of wisdom. David, we'll start with you.
Parting words are don't watch other people. Don't focus on other people. Focus on yourself. Build yourself up to the strongest weapon that you can. Don't worry so much about everybody else. They can't stop you if you can push yourself through anything. So,
Reggie?
I would, as far as man, you kind of got me. As far as words of wisdom, I would say that do when you're going into that environment as an athlete or when you do anything, make sure that you understand why you're doing what you're doing. Understand the why and really spend some time each day in understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Really focusing on that so you can avoid so many mistakes that so many of us, especially adults, the older we get, the more we look back at it as far as it's like, man, if I spent just a little bit of time thinking about why I'm doing what I'm doing, I could have pivoted and adjusted when the time was necessary, or I didn't let things get to the point where it was too late. Always understand why you're doing what you're doing, and always make sure that at the base of what you're doing is coming from you and not anybody else, not your mom, not your dad, yourself, because it's your life. You're the one living it. You're the one struggling and striving and succeeding and doing all this stuff. You're the one dealing with the pressures. You're the one dealing with the criticism. So you better make sure that you are actually doing what you want to do for the right reasons, according to you and only you. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
That is powerful. Folks, my name is Kayla Bradham. I'm here tonight with two amazing NFL alumni, David Carter, Reggie Walker, reminding you to live your legacy. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.